for us really was something that changed our trajectory in terms of growth. So that when you are buying an apartment from Castia, you're gonna be 100% sure that the apartment is in the right conditions.
They try to cannibalize the big platform. Donc ils ont levé avec Sequoia récemment. Le marché est intéressant à Paris, c'est complètement différent. Toujours un mot, tu vois. Donc pour faire des belles phrases, c'est difficile. Friendly, yeah. We eat before.
Si tu crois que tu as une idée, il faut aller construire quelque chose vraiment petit pour prouver that there's an opportunity in the market.
So we are in Bogota with Nicolas, the founder of Castia. And my first question I have for you, I know you speak French.
Yeah.
Why did you study in a French lycée, and how is your French today?
Yes, that's a funny question. My French has been a little bit rough for the past few years. I studied in the French school for almost 14 years. Why? The question why is that because my father wanted us to learn a third language apart Spanish and English. We're 4 brothers. And my mother, she had a good experience during college and university with people that were coming from the French school. They thought they were open-minded, chill, like different from other schools that you see here in Bogota. So they decided to put us in the French school, and at the end was an amazing experience.
And your French is still good.
Ouais, mon français ça va. C'est pas parfait. Parce que
Better than my Spanish.
parce que ça fait 14 ans que je parle pas jour à jour. Mais bon, c'est bon d'avoir un third language on your back.
So let's keep it in English.
Let's keep it in English, please. Please.
No, I think I don't really like the expression, but you have a classic background, nice university, then moving to the consulting world.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, you start to build your first company.
Yeah.
It was in the farming industry.
Yeah.
What was the motivation, and how big is the farming industry in Colombia?
Okay, so as you said, I did engineering in the university, then I jumped into consulting for almost 5 years. But I already had like some thoughts that I wanted to start my entrepreneurial journey somehow. And back then in 2015, I was doing a consulting project for agribusiness here in Latin America. And with one of my co-workers, we started seeing that there was a nice opportunity, a market opportunity to bring technology to the farming industry. And especially for small and medium farmers, that they don't use tools to take decisions that are more informed by data. So that's where I decided to quit my corporate job and start testing ideas around the agri-tech industry. It was an amazing experience, 1 year of learnings, failures, most of them failures. But at the end, it was like the first experience to really understand how to really test an idea and see if it's something that would have or not product market fit on the market. At the end, it didn't work out, as most of your first startups. But in the process, I started exploring other industries that were more close to my heart. And that's where my second startup started, which is this one, different business, different sector, but was one business that was really close to my heart because I'm a runner. I like to run, I like to do trail running, and most of the food that I used to eat at that time was coming from abroad. So you were paying a lot of money to buy one of these bars from the United States, from Europe, and there was not really a good option here locally to support your with really good nutrition and with a really nice brand.
So it was crazy because the biggest part of the economy of Colombia is agriculture today.
Definitely.
You have the best fruit and vegetable in the world. So people were selling that to the United States, mixing into an energy bar and sending back.
Exactly.
So you just cut a...
So what we saw is that we could make a good bar with local products So you see different ingredients that are really locally produced, and bring a good brand to the market, and bring some options to not only people that were doing sports, but people who want to have a healthy lifestyle and a healthy nutrition.
And so the company is still running because we bought
Yeah.
them like today.
Yeah, so the company I co-founded the company with a good friend and his brother, and the guy who was also my partner in the agribusiness, and the four of us starting basically from scratch, building the bars in my mom's kitchen actually, building the first brands to really test if the concept was right, doing what we call right now MVPs, but this was really bars made from my mother's kitchen. And currently the business is running. One of my partners is leading the business operationally, and fortunately it's a business that is up to after a pandemic, but it's been a tough moment, but we're still up and running.
And so when did you buy your first apartment?
So now moving to the real estate. So this is really interesting story because my father and my mother, they're doctors. Really nothing to do with real estate. But my father, he has always loved uh, to really save money and put it in bricks, as he said. Bricks are always safe. Bricks is the way you can build something for the future. So when we were really young, we were four brothers. He always pushed us to save some money apart. And when I was 16, he pushed us to buy the first apartment. It was a really, really, really small apartment, more that was in a condition that we could refurbish it and basically transform it in a really nice apartment. So I remember when I was 16, doing all the process of buying this apartment, trying to find the persons to really do all the refurbishment, and basically sell it after 5 or 6 months for a profit. So that was kind of my first experience around real estate. And 15 years, I see, fast forward, I see that the pains that I saw that first time are still on the market. And I think that was one of the things that made us think about how to really transform the industry, using tech, using processes, and basically making the process easier for people that want to buy a house.
Yeah, before going to the Castia story and one of your most successful entrepreneur journey, I want to really understand the Colombian market. My only option so far, and I think we talked about that in our first call 1 year ago, I was looking for a flat in Medellin. And the only way to find a flat in Medellin is to do door-to-doors. Go to the local, the guy who is managing the building, and say, do you have a flat to sell or to rent? Or then you can see when you walk in the street, most of the phone numbers on top of the building. This is quite unique. That was my first understanding of the Colombian market. And then the second learning I have is everyone is building. There is building all around the place. So if you have to give like a good understanding of how different is the Colombian real estate market compared to the London where you study, what would be like the 5, 6 like very big difference you see?
Yeah, so I would say that, to summarize in three pain points that you see in the real estate industry here, is that the first one is that there's an illiquid market, and this is really at the end showing because most of the apartments are sold by the window signs. So we know a fact that around 67 to 70% of the transactions are still done through window signs. And that makes that there's a lot of asymmetry of information in the markets.
For sure.
So that's why most of the, I would say, startups and PropTechs in the scenes have focused on building these marketplaces to really bring transparency in terms of pricings, in terms of buildings, and really connecting the dots around the industry. And trying to get the number of time to sell an apartment, which is currently around 10 to 12 months
It's a lot.
that it takes to sell an apartment, a flat here in Bogota, which is completely different, as you mentioned, in London, that can probably take 1 month, 1.5
Paris
months.
one day.
And in Paris, probably 1 day, 1 week. So that's, I would say, one of the biggest pain points and opportunities in this market. The second one, I would say, is more about financing opportunities and options that the home buyers have once they already started the purchase of their new home. And one of them that I may say is different from Europe or the US is that you have to put a lot of down payment from the beginning.
How much percentage, and still today?
Still today, you are around 25 to 30% of the down payment you have to put to buy a place.
Crazy.
And this really hinders the possibilities to people to buy a house, because you have to have the liquidity to really do the purchase. So that's one of the second main problems we saw in the industry. And the third one is more around mortgages. So mortgages, I would say, are really concentrated in some financial institutions, probably the old ones, the elephants on the industry. And I think there's still an opportunity to build more solutions and give people more solutions on how to finance a home purchase here in Latin America.
And to give a good understanding, the rate, on my own understanding, are quite high in Colombia compared to the rates we can have in the Western world. For example.
Yes, that's true, and more in the current situation. I think we are all aware that we are facing a really macroeconomic downturn that is affecting a lot of industries, and one of them is the mortgage industry. So all the inflation is really hitting the mortgage rates and pushing them a little bit too high. But still, the region has always seen really high mortgage rates compared to other economies as the US or Europe.
And to focus on that, so there is a big problem of how to find the place. There is a big problem how to build the place. And today, most of the people stay in the same place all their life, or they rent a place. What's the common behavior as a Colombian? Because not everyone have this mindset to start small at 16 and buy a flat.
Yeah.
What's the common behavior you see?
So the common behavior is that people are still seeing a house as a way to progress in life, and it's a safe investment because at the end you have the bricks, as I was mentioning. Yeah. So when you starting a family, one of your goals in life is always to buy your first place. So I think those trends are not changing, and people are still buying places, the first place they want to buy. And when they start having more kids or the triggers in their life, the chances are they want to move. Probably the first flat that you bought at 30 years old is not gonna be the flat that you're gonna be living when you're 40, when you have 2 kids, 3 dogs, and 4 cats, that you will gonna need a bigger place to live. So that's where we saw also a really interesting, I would say, consumer trend, is that people wanna have the freedom to choose how to live and to really move to a place that really fits their needs at the moment they're living, and not the one that they choose 10 years ago.
And you see a difference in terms of how long people stay in the flat or the house in Colombia compared to other markets?
In terms of times, I would say what we're seeing here locally is that people stay around 4 to 5 years in the same place. And because we're focusing on people around 30 to 50 years old, you used to have that time where you speed up in terms of triggers. You need you decide to have a son. So 3 or 4 years is the average time people are staying in one flat. And that makes the necessity to really find a solution to change. And that's where we started like kind of digging into that problem and solution that we're probably going to talk a little bit
Yeah,
more
I
later.
think it's the moment. I think we really understand that you were one of the best person to launch Castia, this type of opportunity. So I think it's very clear how did you get the good understanding of the problems, but how did you get this idea of the solution? Because, and you will talk and I really let you like present the
Yeah.
solution. This is not like the common like solution. I will say, okay, we build a map where I can put the flat.
Yeah.
But how did you find this solution and what is the solution today?
Yeah, so I think the problems are clear. There's liquidity in the market. There's financing problems for people who want to change, and I think one of the things that we started seeing is that most of the solutions are focused on the seller, and not in the buyer. Yeah. So when you want to sell a house, you probably have a bunch of options. You have the traditional brokerage, you have the marketplaces that are connecting the dots, and you have new players as the iBuyers who are basically helping you liquidating the assets. So when we saw that the seller, the buyer, sorry, wasn't having as much as solutions on the market, we start seeing what was being done in other markets as the US. And we found one solution, one business model that kind of solves all the pain points that we were seeing in the region. And that model is the model of buying before selling, which allows you to buy a new place, as the name says, before selling your old one. So most of the people that are already homeowners and they want to move to a new place, usually they end up in a gray area because they can't pay for the new down payment if they haven't sold the old house. And most of the times, if you have already saw the house that you loved and your dream home, you lose the house on the market because you don't have the time to sell and buy.
Yeah.
So we brought this solution that where we help you buy before you sell. And what we do is we provide a financial solution, which is a credit line that basically helps you pay for the down payment. And as soon as we move you to the new apartment, we start selling your old one. And if we haven't sold the old one at a specific period of time, we buy it directly. So at the end, as a client and as a homeowner, you kind of don't have to worry about the risk of not selling your house because you already have a guarantee offer by Castia.
So if I summarize with my very basic word, you are a real estate agent and a banker at the same time.
Correct. Correct. Sorry. So we're playing in the intersection between PropTech and FinTech. And that's really interesting because we're seeing kind of the two worlds, how they are evolving at different speeds, but it's really interesting.
So you have three co-founders today. One of them is your brother, actually.
Yeah.
How did you get to work with one of your brother?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting story. So as I mentioned, we've been involved in the industry for the past 15 years, more as a hobby than anything else.
You are the, excuse me, you are the tallest, the youngest, and
He is the tallest.
okay.
He is the oldest. I'm in the one in the middle.
Okay.
And we have four twins.
Okay.
Which in English is like twins, but not twins.
Okay.
And so he had also this more traditional path, consulting, MBA, consulting in McKinsey. Then he jumped into a startup on the cannabis industry, which was booming a couple of years ago here in Colombia. And he kind of lived that experience of growing a business from scratch. When he joined the company, there were, I think, 10 people. When he left, they were listed in NASDAQ with around 600 people in, I don't remember how many
It was
cities.
like a vape, cannabis?
No, they were more on the medical space.
Okay.
So they started producing cannabis here in Colombia, basically for medical purposes. So they produce the raw material, they sell it to pharmaceuticals, and they're doing all the technical trials and all around building medication around cannabis. So he spent around, I think, 4 years of his life building and selling cannabis to the world. And as they managed to get the business to Nasdaq,
Yeah.
he kind of felt that he has already like accomplished one main goal, that was to bring something at that point in terms of scale. And he decided that he wanted to be an entrepreneur, that he wanted to have his own business, his own things. And that's where we started to talk.
Who convince each other?
So it was funny. It's a funny story. I came back from London
Yeah.
around 2020, October 2020, and I remember the first weekend we were walking. My nephew, he has a really nice, a really cute girl named Emilia. We were walking in Emilia on the neighborhood of my parents, and he started asking me, what are you going to do with your life? We should start
The
exploring.
grandmother questions.
Yeah, what are you going to do with your life? We should start exploring the real estate industry. There's these things called the PropTechs. We are supposed to be tech companies in the property space. Why don't we look for something that might make sense and start like brainstorming ideas? And then he told me that, hey, this guy Eduardo, a good friend, also from the Lycée Français, the three of us from the Lycée Français, he's also tired from his corporate life. And I know he's a really nice guy, brilliant. He knows how to deal with finance, because he's been in the corporate finance for the past 14 years of his life. And I think he could be the third leg that we need to really put this together. So we started talking December, white blanket, white canvas, and really drawing some ideas on what would be this model that we have currently, that the buy before you sell in Castia, tropicalized, as we mentioned.
No, and it's been 2 years you have been working with your brother every day. I think having the good aspect that we told, but also like the bad aspects that we
Yeah.
live as an entrepreneurs. What's the biggest challenge to work with a brother inside the company?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, and I would say more like the biggest tip around this, is you have to really define roles from the beginning, and bring complementary at the end. So I think the three of us has different set of skills, and we've managed to really create boundaries and confidence on each one of the decisions that each one of us is taking on the day-to-day basis. So I think that was key to really have different roles and to have permanent communication. So with them, we talk every day and night via WhatsApp. And I think that makes the communication really flowing on a permanent basis. And I think the third one is that from the beginning we align on the type of culture that we wanted inside of the business. And from the beginning we put a lot of interest, investment, and time on defining what is the culture that we want, defining what are the values that are going to be driving us in the future, and defining what is that purpose that everybody talks about purpose.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to really find something that drives you every day and night. So we spent early on with the leadership team that we had, some good offsites thinking about values and purpose. And I think that's been driving the business from the first month. It's values.
And I think you are one of the rare startups that can say we are like a family because it's a family business.
It is a family business. It is. Definitely is a business. Of course, you have challenges, because when your brother, you have full confidence, and you can talk really transparent. And I think that gives you a lot of color into that conversations and into the discussions that you have on the table.
And you get to Y Combinator, the prestigious incubator, and you are in the short list of successful Colombian company going to Y Combinator. When it was, at what stage of the company you were, and why you decided to go to Y Combinator?
Yeah, so Y Combinator was like a goal for us at the beginning. We knew that they really had a good program, and probably was kind of the launch pad that we needed to start growing. So the story is funny because we applied for the summer batch, we didn't get in, and then we reapplied for the winter batch.
Winter 2020.
Winter 22.
Yeah.
Correct. So the first experience was because the three co-founders were not technical people from scratch, from our base. So the main feedback was, if you find someone that has the technical background that can support in the leadership team the solution, you're kind of in. So we focus our time, our money into finding the right person. We ended up having that person on board, and we reapplied for the winter batch.
And do you see the difference? Because it was just a feedback from YC. And as a business profile, do you feel you miss this technical co-founder with you?
Definitely. I think that for us, from the beginning, we wanted to be a tech company.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to be a traditional brokerage firm. So we started investing in people that really had technology as a backbone. And that was one of the, I think, key decisions that we made early on in the journey that brought us where we are now, to really invest in tech and really invest in the right people around tech.
And during Y Combinator, you know, there is some people who say it changed my business definitely. Some other who say I don't see a lot of value. On which part of the equation you are, and what was your biggest learning, if you have one, during Y
Yes,
Combinator?
I think for us, really was something that changed our trajectory in terms of growth. And this is something that I think is more around the mindset. So you usually you're coming from a traditional mindset, and during the program, they are really pushing you to think about a mindset of growth, a mindset of building things that are not scalable, a mindset of execution. And I think that is really key to really start deploying both capital and really execution at a really high performance level in terms of execution.
And you did it because straight after Y Combinator, you raised a crazy round. I think it's 38 millions, both in debt and venture and equity.
Yes, what was funny is that we got the financing actually just before starting the program.
Okay.
So we had that leverage on having the funds to really invest in growth. And as you mentioned, that where we close our seed round, both in equity and debt, to really finance what was going to happen in 2022. And what happened in 2022 is that we had amazing numbers in terms of growth. We grew 10x from January to August. And that made us think about not only staying in Colombia, but actually moving to Mexico at the beginning of the year.
Nice, very cool. I have two questions for you. There is a lot of misunderstanding in terms of the new debt fundraising, you know,
Yeah.
because some companies just say we raised 38 millions and they don't take the time to explain to the people that there is two parts of the equation,
Correct.
as you mentioned, the equity and the debt.
Correct.
Can you explain me the difference and how do you use both money?
Yeah, so the equity basically is used to fund the corporate growth, as to really invest in people, to really invest in expansion. And the debt is more used to the working capital that you need to deploy the money for the loans that we're generating, and basically support that part of the business that is generating our loan facilities.
Yeah, very clear. And you, how many flat did you bought since the beginning of the years of house?
Yeah.
How many did you bought?
It's funny. So as of now, we started in January by buying. Actually, we were buying 3 at December. Right now, we are buying around 20, 25 properties, depending on the month per month.
Per month.
Yeah, so that's a quite different number, and it's funny because you might see as a small number, but you're talking about flats. So
Yeah.
so there's a lot of operation behind buying, selling, preparing the flats to be sold at the best price. And I think that's been part of the, I would say, challenges of growing in this type of businesses. But I think we made the right decision of bringing the right people on board from the beginning.
And to buy 25 flat, you maybe receive 50, 60 opportunities. Now it's like an investment at the end. You don't buy every flight that people contacting you.
Correct. Yeah. So our funnels, you have to bring a lot of material into the funnel to convert to 15, 20. And we're seeing a lot of flats, probably around 100 visits per week. So there's a people just going on the streets, visiting physically the apartment because it's part of our process to really visit the apartments and doing all the analysis that goes behind really pushing an offer to the market. We, of course, do not accept everyone. We are really strict on the kind of apartment that we are putting into our inventory. But it's been a really interesting year so far.
Yeah, and it's still the seed stage. So for people to realize the company is less than 2 years.
Yes, we've been 18 months on the market actually.
Now, so we are in September 2022,
Yeah.
and this is the metric of Castia. Another question I have for you. How do you see the vision evolve in the next 2 years? So you talk about Mexico, who is, I don't know, in terms of size, 3 times, 5 times
It's like
bigger.
around 3 to 4 times what is Colombia.
Do you see going to Brazil, who is like the most competitive market? Do you think addressing like small market, but like Lima in Peru is still 10 million inhabitants?
Yeah.
So what's your
No,
strategy?
that's a good question. And if you had asked this question 6 months ago, that would be a different answer. Currently, we're focusing both in Ciudad de Mexico and in Bogota. I think they're
Big capitals
the
first.
big capitals, and we have the right to win in these two cities. So right now, our focus is really to expand locally in these two countries before thinking about the next flag. This might change in the next year. We will see how the macroeconomic environment is going to be next year. But for now, I think we're focused on Mexico and Colombia.
Yeah, you are coming to Medellin soon.
We are in Medellin. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we are in Medellin.
Another question. So you say you have 100 visits per week with a lot. Like, how do you get this buyer coming to you? Is it mainly by paid acquisition? Is it mainly by physical presence? What's your acquisition strategy today, and how it changed maybe since the beginning?
So that is a really good question in the sense that we have paid acquisition, of course, but what we found is that, as I was mentioning, most of the market is on the streets. So you have signs. So we at the end have people patrolling the streets, putting signs from the windows, and just doing cold calls to really understand if you want to sell and you want to buy, I'm going to be your solution. So I would say that's one of our main acquisition channels. Just go directly to the consumer. And the second one is really work with brokerage, with the independent broker. I think for us, from the beginning, has been strategically mandatory to work with them, to be partners with them, and not to compete with the brokerage channel. So what we're building at the end is a partnerships with them, so they can at the end bring us leads and also help us sell our inventory.
No, it's super interesting to come back about the street. So today, how do you build that? Is it mainly like students who are doing that as a part-time job to first identify, and then you have your sales calling back because you are creating a unique database that no one created in the market?
Correct. So we have students, we have interns, we have commercial people going around. Even me, when I see a sign, I just plug it into the CRM, and at the end there's a call center that is doing the calls, trying to push the product and understanding the needs of the person. I think one of the main keys of our service is that we're not selling a service, we're selling an experience, and we're selling and enabling people to really accomplish their dream of finding a new place. So I think that's part of the speech that we're facing currently.
So you are disrupting the real estate agency and you are disrupting the loans industry. What's the biggest technical challenge that you face today, or challenges in general?
Yes, I think one of the biggest technical challenges. One would be around data. So because we don't have, I would say, centralized data as you might have in the US, probably in Europe, you don't have that raw power to bring pricing into the right accuracy that you require to be scaling this at the speed as you want.
So for example, just to better understand, like in France, there is a past data of all the sale of the street, so I can know my flat is exactly that price because I have the 10 last transaction with the public data. In Colombia, you don't have this information available.
You don't have a centralized database that shows you the historical value of your apartment. So that's also an opportunity. And I think there are players that are playing into that space of bringing clarity and transparency into pricing. But also it's a challenge to scale. So for us, it's been a main focus to bring the right people in terms of data, to build models around scarcity, and to build models that are more based on comparables and probably seeing how the different neighborhoods are trending and prices are being fixed that way a little bit.
And compared to you moving to the agriculture business in the past, are you like in the perfect field for you? Are you like in the type of business that you dream about?
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, I've been here for the past 15 years, not as a full-time job, but more like as a hobby and something that is been moving my heart from the beginning. So I think right now I feel that I found my flow on what was the industry, what was the kind of solutions that I wanted to build in something that I've been enjoying for the almost half of my life.
This part is more about like the real estate industry and more as a tip. So I think the world is discovering at the moment that Colombia is one of the best countries on earth. And a lot of people, including myself, want to relocate to this type of a market. What will be your recommendation in terms of, okay, I'm moving to Colombia, I want to buy flat. What will be the 5 common mistake you see or 5 tips that you can see for people moving like me with foreign currency, investing in cities like Bogota or Medellin?
Yeah, so I think Bogota and also Ciudad de Mexico, to put it in the radar, is you have a lot of old buildings that have really nice apartments with really nice spaces. So you can find, I would say, good deals in not probably not the best, not the brand new building, but probably something that is older, that you with some capital you can refurbish and make it like a really nice studio for yourself. So try to I would say look for old buildings, old apartments that you can put some money and refurbish it. The second one is, I think, from real estate point, location is key. Yeah, so I think one of the mantras around real estate is location, location, location. So try to really understand the city you're moving to. Try to understand what are the dynamics around the city, what are the urban dynamics around each one of the neighbors, because location is gonna bring valuation, is gonna bring appreciation to your asset. So I think if I can give you one tip is try to really understand what is the location you want to buy an apartment before doing and that.
That's super good. I will continue for like a self-interest questions. So you mentioned 2 things about the real estate market is booming in Colombia. I don't have the precise number, but like the cost of an apartment maybe double in the last 2 years in terms of Colombian pesos.
Yeah.
What's the dimension? How dynamic is the real estate market here?
I think one of the interesting things about Colombian and Mexican market is that for the past 20 years, appreciation and price has been going up steadily, really healthy rates. And that was mainly due because at the end of the 90s, we had a huge mortgage crisis that put a lot of regulation and regulation around home ownership. And I think that's what makes real estate really interesting in these countries now. Last year was a booming year in terms of selling apartments, buying and selling apartments. I think was mainly driven because all the incentives that was brought into by the government due to the pandemic, interests were on the floor, was really the time to buy a house. And now we're seeing, I think, the natural correction of all these pandemic effect. But we are confident that the real estate dynamics are gonna stay for a long. And that is really connected that because in Colombia, especially, there's a lot of deficit in terms of houses. So there's still a good gap between the number of persons, the number of people, and the number of apartments that you have on the cities. So that gap naturally creates an opportunity.
No, that's very interesting. And you're the second person who told me that, but he say never buy a flat who is on the plan, you know, or just the brand new building.
Yeah.
Always buy old flat and renovate.
Yeah.
And to the story, when we moved with my wife in our flat, the first week there is water leaking from everywhere in the apartment, and I was alone in my flat, and I call my wife and I say there is water from the ceiling everywhere. So maybe it's unique, and now the building is very nice, but this is a type of risk you may have by buying on plan or by buying on new building.
Correct. So I think that's one of the main risks. We in Castia, we're focused more on the used market, which is really interesting because we provide all the security that the apartment is in good situation. We have specialized people that goes to the apartment, really understand what are the structural conditions of the apartment, so that when you are buying an apartment from Castia, you're gonna be 100% sure that the apartment is in the right conditions. So that also creates credibility for the buyers. And I think that's one of the main focus for us is to create that credibility around the apartments that we're trying to move. And as a tip, try always to really spend the time on really knowing what are the situation of everything in the apartment before you're buying: water, gas, lights, everything.
And as a tips, do you knock to the other doors and ask coffee with the neighbors? What's the tips you are doing on a personal standpoint without revealing all the business ideas? What a quick action that you can do when you visit a flat in Colombia?
The quick action you mentioned in terms of...
When you want to buy a flat in Colombia, what you need to particularly take attention?
Yes, when you buy a flat in Colombia, I think, which is different in every city, here you have to be really aware that you have a parking. The parking is bringing a lot of value to your apartment because
there's a lot of cars.
There's a lot of cars, and people actually are always looking for a flat that has an apartment. So that's something that you should be looking at. Location, as I mentioned, I think that's one of the things, and probably you would have to be able to have the right security around the building. So right now I think there's been a trend that people are moving out to more automated security, which I think is totally fine and efficient, instead of having like a full army deployed in your building, and that would make the three decisions that you can take. Okay.
Yeah, I take the opportunities. Like, it's really funny because in Paris I have an apartment where you just have a code, to enter to the building.
Definitely.
And here in Colombia you have more of that. I've been living here since 2 years. It's not really for the security, having people with the guns coming to your apartment. It's mainly like for people stealing your flats, like when you are in vacation, steal this flat, and then also to control what is going on. But I just wanted to mention as well, it's not dangerous to live inside an apartment in Colombia. It's mainly like for the services and the robbery who happen a lot, like everywhere in the world.
Totally, yes. To be 100% clear, there's no security issues around. It's more for this kind of uses than for robbery, mainly.
And I have a last question for you. It's been a little rituals.
Yeah.
So today is your third company. You have been buying flats since 16 years old. Are you rich? Do you consider yourself as a rich? And I'll let you define what rich means.
Yeah, so I'm definitely emotionally rich. Probably I don't have my pocket full of money, that's for sure. But emotionally, I feel rich. So, and I think this experience in Castia has showed me that I definitely want to follow this path. Hopefully, it's gonna be Castia that is gonna take us for the next 10 to 15 years down the road. But I do enjoy building things from scratch. I do enjoy seeing people grow and bringing people on these early stages, most of them out of university with nothing a part of their last exam, and really seeing them grow into leaders inside organizations that are really young. So I think that's my, as I mentioned, my mojo, my flow is seeing people grow and really building something that it has a purpose behind.
No, thanks a lot, Luis. Maybe a little word in French for the French entrepreneur who are listening us at the moment. What will be a little advice in French or a quick
Bon,
sentence?
en français, ben, ça fait 14 ans. Je vais faire mon meilleur effort. Non, mais à la fin, c'est si tu crois que tu as une idée, il faut aller construire quelque chose vraiment petit pour propre, prouver that there's an opportunity in the market and that you are really solving the problem, a real problem. My French, I have to speak French again.
But the advice is
Yeah,
it was
so
very nice. So thanks again
no,
for
really,
this discussion. It was a real pleasure. I learned a lot from you, and thanks for taking the time and bring us in this nice space to talk.